in the silence of our hearts or in spoken words. Let us give thanks for the gift of this day and pray for the life of the world. Lover of the poor, defender of the needy, sanctuary of the rejected, for those who suffer injustice today, for men and women who cannot provide food for their families, and for whole communities who fear today and have no hope for tomorrow, we offer the longings of our hearts in prayer. We seek for them, O God, the gifts that are dear to us: food for the table, drink for the soul, shelter in the night, and open arms to welcome us. The blessings of heaven, the blessings of earth, the blessings of sea and of sky, on those we love this day, and on every human family, the gifts of heaven, the gifts of earth, the gifts of sea and of sky. And all of God's people said, we're going to take a week off. We have one more lesson in that Messy Spirituality book, but I felt called to share more about what is going on in our world, especially this past couple weeks with what happened in Orlando, what's going on with the violence in a lot of different places. Am I on now? How about now? Okay. Basically, I just said we're not preaching on messy spirituality this morning. And I'm going to hope and I'm going to try to stay off my soapbox this morning, but I have felt led to share this because we live in a very broken world at the moment. And we can read on social media, we can listen to the pundits on the television or on the radio, and we can read in the newspaper, and it is not very hard to see that we are hurting, and we are broken people, and the violence that happens. And I kept thinking that as Christians, we are called to many things. We are called to live in many different ways. But there are two things that we are called to above all else. And whether you agree or not, these are the two things: peace and love. Those are what we are called to as Christians, to uphold and to continue this thing that Christ came to show us and what God started. To live peacefully with each other, to love God, love each other. That is what we are called to do. Now, we can look at our world and see that this isn't a very idea that people subscribe to a lot. It's a foreign concept to some people. You know, all the violence around us. You know, what happened in Orlando over a group of people and done by another set of people that we are told are different from us, and we are told that are not like us and that we should not like them. And all of these ways that we look and there is violence. So I kept asking to myself, well, what is our response supposed to be? What am I supposed to share? Because I do not have the answers. I do not understand what is going on, and I do not know how to fix all of this around us. And I kept coming back to this idea. One of my responses should be to have a broken heart. To have a heart that is broken because God's heart is broken. Now, I don't necessarily know what we have to do with that, but what it starts me to understand, or what it gets me to understand, is to say, okay, John, before you can address anything or say anything or help or serve, you better have a broken heart because of what has happened and the injustices that have happened and the violence that has happened in my name or in hate and not in love. You should be upset about this. That we are called to be the face of God to people when they look around and all they see is hate. We are called to be the difference makers. We are called to be the ones that say that love is bigger than that. And there's a verse that I thought was going to be up on the screen. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. And we will read another verse here in a minute. But think about that. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. We are called to be peacemakers. We are called to bring peace in situations where there is no peace, to live in peace within our own lives so that others can see God through that. Even if we disagree, even if we don't understand what is going on, even if we're not sure what the situation is, or if I live a different lifestyle than somebody else, we are called to peace regardless. We are called to respect people. Blessed are the peacemakers. Now, how are we going to be peacemakers if we hate? That's right, we can't. How are we to be loving if we hate? We can't. It doesn't work that way. So we have to love. And again, regardless of our differences, we are called to be peaceful and include these people that a lot of times want to keep out. Muslims, gays, any other group you want to put in there that the world has a problem with, and we are told that we are supposed to have a problem with. How in the world is that love? And I'm a little frustrated, not with you guys, just the world in general, because we are called Christians, okay? When we say that we are a people of faith, we say we are Christians. We go to a Christian church. We go to this Christian faith group or whatever it may be. What does that mean? It means we follow Christ. You following me? So if I say I'm a Christian, I have to follow Christ, right? How is hating following the example of Christ? What example, and if you have the answer, you can throw it out. What example in the Bible does Christ give us to hate? What in the life of Christ gives us permission to place ourselves higher than somebody else and hate? Nowhere. Nowhere. We are called to follow Christ. And the example that Christ gave was to say that people matter, that lives matter, that even if we disagree and come from different aspects and different places, we can all gather at the well and talk and have a relationship. And Christ says, love God with everything you have and love each other with everything you have. Christ shows us how to love, how to be in relationship with people we disagree about or people we don't understand. Case in point, if you followed the story in Orlando, like a lot of you did, and you can sift through all of the commentary and all these people who think they have the answers and what we should do, Chick-fil-A did something. Now, I'm picking on Chick-fil-A because if you remember, about a few years ago, Chick-fil-A was in the news because they took a stance against gay marriage. And they said they did not agree with it. And they had people line up at the stores to support the biblical idea of marriage, which we can have a whole discussion on too. Okay? But they came out against this. Now, there's a shooting at a gay nightclub. What did Chick-fil-A do? Chick-fil-A decided that it was more important to go and be the face of God and to serve these people whom they disagree with, but they went and they showed love. And they even opened up on a Sunday, which they're closed on Sundays because of their Christian beliefs. They decided that peace needs to win. They decided that love and relationships was bigger than the disagreements that they have, or the way that they took a stance before. They said, this isn't about these political stances. This isn't about lifestyle. This is about being with people when they need people, and being with people when they need to feel the presence of God in a time when their lives have been shattered. That, my friends, is how we are to respond. We are not to respond by getting on social media and spouting off, well, those people deserve to die, or I cannot believe now all Muslims are like this, or whatever it is. It is not getting on conservative radio, and I listen to it, and listening to these people talk about what should have happened instead of what needs to happen, or just their views. Nowhere in our Christian faith does it say to hate. And if you hear anybody tell you that God calls you to hate a group of people, run the other way. And if you can disagree with me this morning, this is what we are called to do. We cannot deny the fact that we are the peacemakers in this world. Now, I don't have the answer on how to do that. I don't have the answer on how to fight violence. I don't have the answer on how to do away with a radical group that is giving a larger group a bad name. I don't have the answers on how to help Christians understand that we are called to live with everybody peacefully and allow people to come into our churches because this is the place where they can meet God. We're confused. We're hurting. I don't know. But I do know that hate is not the answers. I also know this. This church right here in the middle of Darke County, Ohio, as much as we may disagree on things, we model something very well. We model a space where people can come in on both ends of a spectrum, whether it's political or whether it's theological, and we can say, you know what, we may not agree with each other 100%, but we're here and respect each other, and we provide space for each other to come and to find God and to connect to something bigger than themselves, and most of all, we provide space, even in our differences, for us to connect with each other. We do this spectacularly well. And I'm starting to think that we can be an alternative voice here in Darke County, where we can say, yes, we may not all agree, but come and be a part of this because relationships are bigger than the issues. Come and be a part of this because it is about God, not about me. Come be a part of this because we can take your messy life and your broken life and give you some hope where there is no hope. Come and be a part of this because we are called to love and we are called to be peaceful and we are called to live with each other. Nowhere does Christ say, call the people that look like you. Call the people that you agree with. Call the people that won't make you uncomfortable. Call the people that you know that you agree with 100%. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that. Nowhere. We are called to do this. And it is not easy. It is not easy. And I am guilty just as much. We get angry, we get fearful, we don't know where to turn, and sometimes we make bad choices. You know, I have a friend that was on the news this past week, not in a good way. And he's actually, I'm going to meet up with him in Greensboro because that's where he lives and that's where our conference is. He's a very peaceful person. And he decided to go to the Donald Trump rally just to see what was going on. He's not making a statement or anything. Well, while he was there, he rode his bicycle. And there was a guy in a car, and I don't know exactly what happened, but according to him in the story, the guy saw him and made eye contact with him and thought that he was there protesting on one side, I don't know which side it was, but decided to run him over with the car. Like, kind of kept inching forward until he knocked him off the bike and cut him up. Now, my friend just put on Facebook, be safe, be good, be peaceful. So what did my friend do after he got hit off the bike? He punched the driver's side window in and punched the guy in the face and got arrested. Peace is hard. We get angry. And we get afraid, and sometimes we do not respond the way we should. But what I appreciated about what he said is he owned it. And he said, you know, I called for peace, and I let this hate get the best of me. I let this moment ruin a situation, and he apologized. He still thinks the other guy was guilty, okay? So I'm not saying this is easy. I'm not saying that we have all the right answers, but what I'm saying is that we need to understand what we are called to first, and it is not hate, and it is not exclusion. We are called to love and be peaceful and to say we can do something a little differently. We can respond differently, even if our response is just being with people. Even if our response is just saying, you know what, come and sit with me, even if you look differently and think differently from me, because we serve the same God, and we love the same God, and we are trying to accomplish the same things. Again, Nowhere in the life of Christ does it tell me to hate. And I wish I had answers. I am teaching the Joyful Disciples class, and I thought in their collective wisdom they would have some answers for me this morning, and they didn't. Because it shows us that we don't know what to do. We do not know how to handle what we are living in, and the chaos and the messiness. But what we do know is that it is not hate. What we do know is that we are called to something bigger. And if you'll pull up Romans chapter 12, listen to these verses, and I'm going to read verse 9 through 21. Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Mourn with those who mourn. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. Do not be conceited. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. And I love this verse. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, "It is mine to avenge, I will repay," says the Lord. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. And if you go back to verse 18 and just leave it up there, please. As far as it is possible, live at peace with everyone. This is the hard part. Because, again, peace only works if the person sitting across from you accepts that as well. But that's not my responsibility. All my responsibility is to respond peacefully and lovingly. I can't control how other people will respond. All I have to do is say, okay, God, help me respond the way you want me to respond. Help me to use your heart. Help this broken heart that I feel go to serve and be with people, even if we don't see eye to eye. Lord, help me to be peaceful. And then we can inspire, and we can help other people say, you know what, it can be done. And maybe living peaceful means keeping John's mouth shut. Maybe living peaceful just means to go and sit with somebody and go and serve somebody. Maybe being peaceful just means like what Chick-fil-A did and said, yeah, this isn't about right, wrong, indifference. This is about being with each other. This is about building relationships and showing people that they are worth something. If it is possible, that, my friends, is our mandate. That is what we are called to do. We are called to be peaceful people, called to work for peace and to love God. Peace and love. And I know I sound like a hippie. Peace and love. Peace and love. And again, I have to remind myself of that because the hate wants to come out. The prejudices want to come out. We are all products of how we've been raised and what we've been taught. It's hard to overcome these things, but the beautiful thing about this life of faith and our spiritual lives, and as we talk about messy spirituality, is that God can change us, and that God replaces those parts of me that need God's heart and God's love with that instead of leaving it my way. It is a messy battle. And I'm leaving more questions than answers this morning, but I feel like we need to be reminded that the answer, while we may not know it, it is not hate. That I know for sure. So what we do with that now is your wrestling match. Our wrestling match as a people of faith. And I want to leave here, and a lot of people will know this quote from Martin Luther King Jr. And if you'll put that up there. Returning hate for hate multiplies hate, adding deeper darkness to a night already void of stars. Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. Adding deeper darkness to a night already void of stars. Are we going to contribute to the hate and the violence, or are we going to help the situation? Are we going to be a people of faith and love and say, okay, God, help us? Or are we going to contribute to the darkness? That's our choice. We make a choice. I make a choice. But those words right there, those are powerful, powerful words. And what makes them even more powerful is they're coming from a man who, one, ended up murdered, and two, stood up for an entire race of people that said, we are worth something. And he said that even though people were hating him, and even though people were doing violence towards them, he stood up. You know, I firmly believe that if the canon of the Bible was open and we were adding books, Martin Luther King's voice would be in this Bible. Martin Luther King Jr.'s voice would be the voice of God for a lot of things. But yet it comes from somebody that some people said, they're not worth it. God speaks through everybody. God speaks. Returning hate for hate. Don't add to that deeper, deep darkness.
Gandhi said, an eye for an eye, and the whole world will go blind.
Did you hear that? But that's where we're leading ourselves, to a blind, blind world. But basically, she said that her son is gay. But her son is her son, not her gay son. And that he's a person. And that we should love him, not hate him. Is that? Words are powerful. And since we're sharing personal stories here, I'll share this a little with you. I'm leaving this afternoon to go to Portland, Oregon. My brother is dealing with a lot of addictions. And a lot of that has to do with the trauma that he happened and the abuse. But one of the things that breaks my heart is that I think the missing piece for my brother is faith. Is that he has no hope. And do you want to know why my brother lost his faith? Because he is gay, and we grew up in a church that told him that he was not worth God, and that God opposed who he was. And some other issues. How in the world can I compete with that? When he was told that he was worthless. And now his life is spiraling out of control. And yes, he's making these choices, okay? I'm not saying he's innocent. But if he could hold on to that faith and say, okay, God, help me. But there is so much damage done because of what the church said and what other people have said, he wants no part of it. And again, I'm not asking you to agree. I'm not asking you to say that it is okay. That is your issue. What I'm saying is what Diana was saying too, is that they are people. They are not gay. He's my brother. They are humans. And we are to love and to be with people. Muslims, we are to love and be with them. And even though they are represented a certain way, what we see on television does not speak to the majority of them. We are called to love. One of the best things I saw, I can't remember after what attack it was a couple Muslim, I think it was a husband and a wife, at this protest against Muslims, showed up and set up a booth, and all it said was free hugs from a Muslim. That's all it said. And people came and hugged. And their stories were neat because people came up and maybe started with some hate words or something, but the kindness won them over. The hospitality, just the love that says, come and hug me because I'm another human being. This is what we're called to do, people. It's what we're called to do. And it breaks my heart that people hear things from a pulpit that directly contradicts what the life of Christ means. And in the process, harms people. Can we understand that we are to love and be peaceful people? And here's what really frustrates me, and I'll end here. This is a very simple concept, because I'm getting to the point where I don't want to argue with anybody anymore, because no one's going to change anybody's minds, okay? But ask yourself this: how does somebody else's lifestyle choice, gay, straight, transgender, whatever it is, how does somebody else's religion or faith system affect you? It doesn't. How does somebody else living a life, how does that have any bearing on my spiritual life? It doesn't. How does somebody practicing their religion and where they connect to God affect how I connect to my God? It doesn't. So I don't even know what we're arguing about. I don't know why it even matters. Well, it's right, it's wrong, and you got to stand up for this, and you got to say, no, that's garbage. What I got to stand up for is peace and love. What I have to stand up for is to say, you know what, I'm going to love my God with everything I have, and that's going to allow me to love other people with everything I have. If I think something is wrong, or if I don't think something is right, God can deal with that. I have to answer for myself, because when I get to heaven, people, God's going to go, you know what, John, we're not sure about you. You know, you preached your entire life, and the church was a big part of your life, but you still had things that you shouldn't have been doing. We are flawed and we are human. You know, I'm not going to judge somebody for sinning differently than I am. Not even that it is a sin. I'm just saying, listen to these people. Because there are many more voices out here that could stand up at this moment. And if you hear what's in their voice, it just says, all we ask for is that you love. And that you realize that we are talking about human beings. You know, the easiest way to disregard somebody is to think that they are less than. That's how we can commit a lot of atrocities. And God says that is not what we are supposed to be about. So as we leave this place, obviously, I don't know what the answer is. Obviously, we don't have it all figured out. But it's not hate. And we are called to love, even in our disagreements. And I can look out here right now, and I can see people nodding their heads and saying, you know what, John, good job. And I can see other people nodding their heads going, why do I even listen to this guy talk? You want to know why we come back? Is because we realize that our faith is a very personal thing. And that you don't have to agree with everything. But you wrestle with it, and we are challenged, and we are convicted, and we help each other to wrestle with that. And we also come back because we know that this is our family. And we know that we are loved, and that we have friendships and relationships that matter even in the disagreements. We don't kick our family members away just because they vote differently than us or because they think this way. We stay because it is worth it. Why can't we do that on a larger scale? We can. We just have to decide that. Let us pray. Speak to us, God. We have no words. We fall short. This isn't about right or wrong, good or bad. This is just about living with each other peacefully and lovingly. Help us to know what we are called to as Christians. Help us to extend our hands in peace and love. So wherever we may find ourselves this morning, whatever end of the spectrum we find ourselves on, help us to remember that's not even important. All that is important is to be peacemakers, because we are children of God. Help us to work for peace as much as it depends on us. And Lord, I pray for healing in the lives of the people sitting in this room, and healing in the lives of the people all around the world. All of the violence and the bloodshed and the death that is happening. I pray for your intercession. I pray that you can soften hearts. I pray that you can soften our own hearts so that we may see your face in all of the people we come into contact with. Be with us, God, because it is hard. And all of God's people said, amen. We're going to close with, Lord, I want to be a Christian. Listen to these words, because that is our goal, to be who God is calling us to be. So if you'll please stand.